Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 news and updates. I hope you all had an absolutely very wonderful Christmas, but it's time to get back to work. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come along down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below, and thank you to all of my current subscribers. So first up on the list here, we have AnyBuilds' new Nadi International Airport. Nadi International Airport is located in Fiji, a very popular location for tourists traveling, and it brings the centralized hub for the region to Microsoft Flight Simulator. Flight Simulator? Nice. So obviously the airport boasts many of the other developers do, high quality 4K PBX textures as well as some custom design. However, they've gone a bit above and beyond with the surrounding detail. The airport is very much alive and I really appreciate that, with vehicles, ground textures going on, as well as cargo areas, ramps being busy, internal terminals being populated. So really bringing the airport to life if you're looking for that first-person view experience rather than just a very highly detailed location to land at or take off from. So they've really done a great job, and I've always been very, very impressed with AnyBuilds and all of their work. I think they are an amazing developer who really set the standards to what we would expect to see in Microsoft Flight Simulator in today's scenery and aircraft development. They certainly set the bar. And you guys can pick this one up. I believe it is now up to $13.99. It had a special on the day of release, although I think we missed that. So you can find it on their website for £13.99, which memory serves comes out to just shy of $20 US. Don't quote me because I'm starting to question whether I have that backwards or not, but it's always possible. Anyways, that is AnyBuilds' Nadi International Airport located in Fiji. Full features and everything can be found by clicking the link in the description below. Flight Sim Studios and Aviation Lands has finally released their final preview of their E-Jet series coming up for Microsoft Flight Simulator. In this particular video, we're going to get to see the MCDU in action, programming everything from sins and stars, takeoff performance, all the important performance information handled by the MCDU, just like with any other airliner. One of the things that is really awesome is you can also see the nav display in action as well as being adjusted, and this is going to be particular variant is going to be part of the E175, as you can see here on the screen. Now, the one thing that I really appreciate about this particular MCDU is that it is very similar to the others that we have seen. So I don't think the learning curve is going to be particularly difficult with this particular aircraft, but it's going to be fun to have something with a completely different cockpit layout when it all comes down to it. Very much more advanced in the aspect of, I should say advanced looking, in the aspect that you have much more of that glass cockpit simulation versus some of the old steam gauges. So it really depends on what you're going for. But the E175 that they keep displaying here looks absolutely fantastic, and I'm super excited to try this one out. This will be definitely one that I'm going to be dropping one of the guides on. It just continues that airline experience while giving something a bit different than what the other ones that we currently have. The A320 and the 737, as both they are amazing aircraft. It's cool to see a completely different developer coming into the scene here for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Really excited about this aircraft because one of the things that I've always found very awkward about it is actually what you just saw there, which is the flight yoke. So it's just going to be an incredibly different presence in the cockpit, I think, from the other aircraft that we have. So super excited to see this one come down the line. They have stated this will be the final preview of the aircraft, meaning that we should hopefully see the aircraft coming around the corner and into our hands, hopefully. I want to say soon, but again, that's hopefully. I have no information to actually lay that down yet. This is just me hoping. So cross your fingers, guys. E-Jet series coming along the lines. Aerosoft's A330 development is starting to take further shape. We're getting more and more screenshots from the development team showing off the aircraft's interior and some of the exterior textures. Now, this is another one that is actually really exciting to see coming into fruition because it is such a larger jet than anything that we currently have that's what you would call study level or high fidelity in Microsoft Flight Simulator, depending on what verbiage you wish to use. I prefer more to say high fidelity than study level. Study level, just you flirt with fire, I think, by using that word. Some people really take offense to that one. But they've really done a great job. Now, the thing that is sort of a downer when it comes to the Airbus series, and it would be no different if it was the Boeing series. But my problem with Airbus aircraft is, and from a simulation standpoint, this is where that lack of feeling the power and feeling the difference in the aircraft performance really impacts simulation for me personally, is that, especially from the cockpit side, an Airbus is an Airbus is an Airbus. A lot of them really do look identical unless you really go back in time where you get back into the yokes and the older style of cockpits. But that is not to shake down Aerosoft's development here. They seem to be doing a great job with the textures and modeling of the aircraft. We're seeing a lot of focal points here on the landing gear. But again, it's going to be cool to have the, what is that? I can't remember what they call it, where it's got the 4 wheels in the back. There's actually a specific word for that they call it, and I can't remember for the life of me what it's called. So again, seeing a bigger aircraft in the sim is going to be a lot of fun. But I think where most of that enjoyment is really going to come down to the pre-start and loading sequence, and obviously touchdown and landing. Landings in the bigger aircraft are always fun because it's such a different ball game in the way that you manage the actual approach from a flying standpoint. But like I said, when you're actually sitting in the cockpit here, unless you're actually, truly aware of, what's going on here, I mean, it looks very similar to that of the A320, so I guess I'm kind of bummed to see that particular aspect. And again, that's only in simulation. I can imagine that in the real world, flying these two aircraft is night and day difference. And I'm sure that there's going to be some pretty significant difference in simulation as well. But for me personally, I think that's why I'm so excited about the EMB series too, is because at least the cockpit's going to also feel different. Now, I do like that the overhead panel here is much, much different than that of what we see in the Airbus A320. Some of the things are still the same. You can still see the rotaries up here for the IRS, and some of the electrical panels. But even the coloring, texture, detail, things like that being different, I think is going to help quite a bit as well. But from the, for example, the forward cockpit panel and the FCP, it's going to be, very much so what you're already used to. Now, at the same token, that offers some pros and cons. Obviously, I've already expressed the cons. The pros to that is transitioning from, say, the A320 over to the A330 in simulation should be significantly easier because at least you're going to have a more greater understanding of how to navigate the cockpit. You're going to know where things are. It's going to be a bit easier bouncing from one aircraft to the other without having some sort of significant learning curve. So it really depends on what aspect you look at it from. But it is really cool to see the development of the aircraft increasing. And again, because it is a much larger aircraft, it is still a very, very welcome development that I will be looking forward to checking out. Next up, FS2 Crew has released the PMDG 737 SOP 1 edition, which can now be picked up for €24.95. Now, the features are professional 737 airline flight crew simulator add-on for PMDG 737, supporting all variants of the particular aircraft currently available in Microsoft Flight Simulator, voice control, button control, and auto respond options to the simmer, being you. User assumes the role of the captain and pilot flying, and the simulator first officer assumes the role of, obviously, pilot monitoring, also known as the first officer. Procedures are modeled after the stock Boeing procedures, meaning that it will not represent specific airline operations. Apparently, I needed to slow down because I can't talk right. Voice sets, it includes over 15 human-recorded voice sets from around the world, giving you basically somebody from many different parts of the regions of the world, depending on where you prefer to fly. So you'll have a bunch of different accents and relationships that can be built based on that particular interaction, giving you a more close-to-home feeling, depending on where you are from. So really a pretty amazing piece of software. I've used this in the past. I think it's time for me to take another look at it because it would be a ton of fun. It really does add a lot, you guys. I will give them epic credit for this one. I tried out their A320 variant a long time ago, and especially if you fly in virtual reality, it is not only a major help, but again, an incredible immersion enhancement. Hearing those voices, doing the call outs, bringing the landing gears up, adjusting the lights as anyone in the pilot monitoring position would be doing at the particular stages of flight. It really is a very cool experience, and I highly recommend that you guys give this one a shot if you're someone who's looking to further enhance that simulation experience. And again, this is not just some auditorial enhancement. It is both actual physical adjustment to the aircraft as well as some auditorial responses. And again, having the voice control option really makes things so. Example would be saying landing gear, and your first officer may say, would actually say gear up, or something to that effect. Just showing an example. Landing lights, check. You're going to get those different kind of responses and interaction with the first officer or pilot monitoring, again, depending on what verbiage you choose to use. So it really changes the game a lot. I think in the beginning you feel a little goofy because you're sort of, you're talking, right? Especially with the voice control. But the voice control feature is really where it shines. Being able to actually speak to your quote unquote first officer in this particular piece of software definitely makes it a game changer. So highly recommend you guys check this one out. Last up on our list today, guys, is going to be an aircraft that I've already done a review on, so be sure to check that out, and I'll try to remember to post it up here, but that is the FlyInside Bell 206. This aircraft is by far, in my personal opinion, the best helicopter currently available for Microsoft Flight Simulator today, and that's saying a lot, because the developers that we have for helicopters, for example, Hype Performance Group, are fantastic developers. They are amazingly skilled, and they show it in their work. So do not let this take away from the other developers at all. But I think that, in my personal opinion, now keep in mind I am not a real world pilot, helicopter, or fixed wing. Not yet anyway. So taking that from my perspective as an avid simmer, right? I think that the Bell 206 is the best helicopter we currently have available in flight simulation. And that's, again, saying something. I'm an avid also DCS helicopter pilot. And I just think there's something about this Bell 206 that makes it the best helicopter simulation that I have ever had the pleasure to fly. It is really an outstanding model. The sounds are incredible. Startup procedures are challenging in the aspect that if you don't do it right, you damage something. Now, there are ways around it. You have the option to skip the damage scenarios if you just want to get up and fly. You don't care about those kind of things. For me, and I stated this in a previous video, I'm about 1-to-1. Or excuse me, no, I'm not 1-to-1. About 1 out of 4 that I do a successful start without hot starting the aircraft. I've actually had the developers themselves give me tips, and I just can't figure it out. I need to schedule some time to actually fly with these guys so they can teach me what the hell I'm doing wrong, but it's just hard finding the time where everything syncs up. But really great development team. They're very, very responsive, very supportive of their customers, and they really did aspire to make an absolute fantastic model. One of the cool parts is one of the developers actually owns the aircraft. So everything's coming from personal, real world pilot experience. Sounds and everything like that are coming from the aircraft itself. Now it does use the FlyInside Manager still, which is a third-party application from FlyInside that basically you launch it, then you launch the simulator, then you launch your helicopter. You don't have to do any kind of crazy tweaking or load profiles. You just have to have it running. Now, one of the cool parts is that from their software, you can actually adjust the curvature of your controls. So collective, throttle, rudders, and cyclic, you can adjust their sensitivity. Now, I've had the developer tell me, try to get it as close to 1-to-1 as you can, because that's where you're really going to get the most out of it. But man, it is a learning curve from heck with this particular helicopter. It is by far the most challenging that I have seen yet, especially in transition from takeoff to forward flight. Getting the thing off the ground for me is just the cyclic is so sensitive. It's really hard to wrap my brain around. If you guys do pick this aircraft up or you find yourself challenging, I will tell you one more tip that I have found, at least for flight simulation: fingertips. Use your fingertips to control the cyclic. Do not grip it and twist it and grip it tight. Okay, use your fingertips. Light, gentle, lateral, and vertical movements on the cyclic. And trust me, it's a game changer. It's weird at first. You feel awkward, but you do not, if you grip it and you're finding yourself just constantly fighting it, let off the grip and go to fingertips. And I promise things will smooth out a bit, because you won't be able to apply quite as much pressure so rapidly with just your fingertips. Anyways, that's just my recommendation. This is an absolutely fantastic helicopter. And it can be purchased from FlyInside's website. A link to that will be down in the description below. Well, guys, that is going to wrap up another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 news and updates. We've got some more exciting stuff coming from you guys this week. We have a Ford Tri-Motor that we're going to be showing off here on the channel from a specific developer that I will be mentioning at a later time that I think you guys are going to really enjoy. We've got some hardware reviews coming up this week that I think you guys are going to like as well. A new cockpit seat, some hand controls, and even new head tracking that is on its way that you guys I think are going to enjoy seeing as well. So stay tuned to the channel. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, guys. Ring that bell for notification of future content if you guys are interested in seeing more of the same Microsoft Flight Simulator content that you have already become accustomed to. As always, guys, once again, I want to make sure that you guys all had a wonderful weekend. I hope it was pleasant and you spent time with your families. Stay safe and healthy. I'll see you in the next one.